Hello, my name's Logue, and this is Mono-Logues. Mono-Logues is an attempt to dissect an issue, a space, a process, and get across my feelings on it. This month, we're looking at supermarkets, and specifically, the things that you can do in them. Supermarkets are perhaps the only remaining intersection of society, physical or otherwise, a space that is truly representative of your local area. Where else are professionals, teenagers, OAPs and the homeless likely to share a roof? Where else can a work-from-home data analyst buying nutritional yeast and an addict buying a litre of unbranded vodka stand shoulder to shoulder in the queue? For reasons that are too private to share, I spent the best part of 7 years working in supermarkets. In that time I approached a kind of intellectual mastery of the space and its systems, but back on the other side I realised that they are amongst the strangest spaces in our fractured world. As you'll learn tonight, there are many things to do in supermarkets beyond just buying and selling. Some of those things are captured in our first story. It's titled Friday Night, 9:45 to 10, and I hope you enjoy it. Judy is sat on the shop floor screaming, "I haven't done anything wrong," and Ali is standing over her in his mighty jacket with his hands out, saying, "Miss, you cannot steal from this store." But she's not paying attention to him. She seems to not even register he's there. She's just screaming, like screaming, and all the customers are looking, to me, to Ali, but not to her, as if they haven't spotted the screaming woman sprawled at their feet. Ali is holding the wine box she presumably tried to steal, and she sat in the open area by the self-serves, with people awkwardly stepping around her holding their 4-packs. "I've never done anything wrong in my life," Judy wails, looking up at me. Behind the till, protected by a perspex screen, I can see Claudia smiling to herself. "Just please leave, just go, please just get out," I say. Ali is waving her to the door with his free hand. I can feel my heart pumping, my hands shaking, my head spinning. "You literally did this exact same thing last week, Judy. What are you trying to achieve here?" I say, but she isn't listening. Ali grabs her arm and tries to lift her, and she starts screaming again, and all the customers are looking at me, or whispering to each other with hands cupped around their ears. My shirt is drenched in sweat and my headset keeps slipping off. A queue is forming, those too awkward or sober to navigate the screaming woman. "Can't you get on the other till?" a guy asks. "No," I say. "I don't have time." There's a massive queue. "I'm sorry," I manage. "If I go on till, it's like a domino effect of things not getting done, and then I'm here till midnight." I move past him and dash down the stairs. "Ollie, she's screaming so much," Claudia says, and I can hear snatches of Judy in the background. I know, I'll call the police, just give me a minute," I say. Downstairs, the ripped packet of chicken is still sat in the trolley where I left it earlier, and it's starting to smell. "Shit," I say to myself. I open the door to the office and collapse onto the chair, leaning back and looking up at the fluorescent bulbs. I feel dizzy. I slap both sides of my head, squeeze my temples, squeeze my eyes, take a sip of the tea, lukewarm. I get up, grabbing a cart and throwing on the booze from my list. Carling, own brand red wine, Strongbow, Moretti, Brewdog. I get another tray and unlock the spirits cage, grabbing a dozen small whiskies, Russian Standard, own brand gin. "Ollie," Claudia says. "I'm just getting the booze up," I say. Grab the phone from behind the till. I shove the trolley into the lift, hurling the doors shut and praying it works. It doesn't. I open the outer door, slam the inner door once, twice, 3 times, then slam the outer door again. It works. I dash up the stairs. It's 9:50. I need to start wasting all the bread soon or everything's going to be fucked. I open the door and the queue of customers is snaking round to the sandwiches. Judy's screaming seems to have made the self-serves essentially unreachable for all but the drunkest students, who dance around her, laughing. Ali seems to have returned to the door. I walk over to the till and Claudia hands me the phone through the gap. I walk round to Judy. "Judy, I'm going to call the police unless you leave. Do you want that? Do you want me to call the police?" She doesn't seem to hear me. She's just sat there wailing on the floor. Please just go," I say. Ali is back now and reaches for her arm again. I'm holding the phone in front of her, thumb hovering over the 9, and this time something relents, and she's up, barely supported as she stumbles to the door. Okay, self-serve is undudied, I say, and a few dutifully squeeze out of the queue and head over. I dash back to the lift. Can't you get on the till? Someone says to my left. I don't have time, I say. If you think that's bad, email the area manager, but I'm not going on a fucking till. I grab the tray of spirits first, walking it over to the till. Claudia opens the side door and I dump it behind her. Just do it at the end, don't worry now, I say. I dash back to get the trolley itself, wheeling it round to the booze aisle. I get the whole thing out in record time, ripping cardboard, shoving beer cans and wine bottles while arms grab around me. FFM is playing No by Meghan Trainor. This song makes me want to drink bleach, I say over the headset. Not gonna lie, the music in this store is so shit, Claudia says, scanning with one hand and pressing her earpiece with another. My friend's friend works in corporate and I asked her about the radio and she said to email them, I say. I actually might, because there's like 5 specific songs they play that are literal fucking torture, like Guantanamo Bay shit. Ollie, I think that guy in the black jacket is nicking stuff, Claudia says. I look around. Which guy? Ali says. I think he's by the sandwiches. He was near the door. I walk around the corner and spot the man. He's stumbling drunk, and I can see that his jacket has the Thameslink logo on it. Must be off work. Would he really steal things in a work outfit? I say, quietly. I don't know, Claudia says. I'm pretty sure I saw him. I'm on it, Ali says, turning from the door to face into the shop. I move through the queue to the now empty booze trolley, wheeling it back into the lift. I slam the inner and outer door and it works first time. He's trying to leave, Claudia says. I turn and head through the fizzy drinks aisle to cut him off, but Ali's already there. The guy ducks him to the left to get out of the shop and we follow. It's dark and the wind is picking up, but there are dozens of people out, many wearing less than me. I ain't done anything, ain't fucking done anything, the man says, words spilling out, but Ali has cornered him, even though we're out of the shop now. Open the jacket, sir, Ali says, and the guy backs towards the wall. I'm standing there, a metre or so away, watching. Come on, sir, open the jacket. The guy is swaying, his eyes completely fucked. Ali darts his hand into the jacket and immediately pulls out a steak, tossing it to the floor. Don't fucking touch me, the man says. I'm staring at the little Thameslink insignia on his breast. A guy smoking outside the Premier Inn walks over, big, angry looking. Ali pulls out another steak. You think you can nick that, you little cunt, the man says, tossing his cig. I'm just standing there. Ali grabs his radio and calls for town centre security. Premier Inn man is getting in his face. You think you can just fucking nick that, huh? Can just take it. Fuck off, Thameslink man says, but quieter. Try it, go on, dumb cunt, just fucking try it. Thameslink man makes a slight movement and Premier Inn man punches him in the face, which sends him slumping into the wall. Premier Inn man forces him down, turning to pin him on the floor. Thameslink man is kicking, snarling, blood leaking from his nose, and I'm backing away. What's going on? Claudia says. I duck back into the shop. Some other fucking arsehole just came over and lamped him. Jesus, Claudia says. I spot Judy stumbling down the sandwich aisle, dashing around her. She's swaying, her face red and without expression. No, come on, no, I say, and she drops her shoulders, walking back towards the entrance. I follow behind, so that when, as expected, she attempts to turn towards the till and the wine rack to the left of it, I maneuver myself in the way. Please leave. She turns and shuffles into the night. 2 of the town centre security people are handcuffing Thameslink man, who's still screaming and writhing. Premier Inn man is saying something to Ali, puffing out his chest. Jesus Christ, I say under my breath. All go tonight, Claudia says. Can you take me off for a sec so I can pee? Sure, yeah, I say, crossing to the tills. The queue hasn't really died down. I tap in my code and nod at the first couple. Why do they steal the steaks? The man on the left says. I exhale. I don't know. Someone told me they sell them to restaurants, but I don't know. Ooh, he says. But it's like, the people robbing us are mostly so crap at it that I don't buy any theory about it being some organised whatever, you know. I think it's just a bad location and like, I don't know, the complex social issues of the day or whatever. They pay by card. Don't Talk to Me About Love by Altered Images is playing. I actually like this one. I ID the next group, and one of them was born in 2002, which makes me uncomfortable. Half the booze I put out is gone already. I should just leave it on the trolley. Long night, a lady buying a pizza says. Friday and Saturday for the last couple of months have been feral. I don't know why. Lead poisoning, maybe. She laughs. Must beat being sat inside on furlough. I wobble my head and she laughs again. Claudia comes back and I run downstairs to grab the bin bags. I'm going to run up a final trolley of booze and just leave it up there, I say. Then I'll start binning stuff. I head down and start grabbing beers out of the booze cupboard, just guessing what's likely to go out. I roll the trolley into the lift and slam it as hard as I can, sending it up and jogging back to the office to drink some water. I grab the printer and a spare roll of stickers, hooking the printer onto my belt and putting the stickers in my pocket, already bulging with the HHT, my phone, a cardboard cutter, and 50 loose out-of-stock labels. I grab a couple of green bin bags and a single white one, heading back to the stairwell. I dump everything at the top of the stairs, looking through the small window in the door to see that things have quietened down, finally. I exhale, tap the green button, and step out onto the shop floor. I open the lift and grab the trolley, moving it around to the beers. Claudia has her phone hidden behind the till and is stopping to tap it several times between each customer. There's two drunk guys next to me talking loudly to one another. I should have chinned the cunt, one of them says. I keep my distance, pushing in cans of Foster's, Carling, and beer Moretti. Suddenly the other one says, "What the fuck was that about?" And I turn to see him squaring up to a third man, older, who's standing at the end of the aisle with a woman. "What?" the third man says. "Why did you just fucking barge me, you bold cunt?" he says, his friend turning from the beers. "I didn't touch you, you prick." "Fuck off. Do you want to go? Do you want to get your fucking head kicked in? Is that it?" The woman has her arm across him like a bar in a roller coaster. I'm not saying anything, just standing there, about a meter from all of it. Ali has come over, saying, "Not in the store," very firmly with his hands out. Behind him, I see Judy shuffling towards the shop door holding a wine box. Nah. This bold cunt wants to fight, then he's got to fight. I will fucking clatter you, do you hear me? The third man is pushing against the woman's arm, sticking his head out, eyes open, nostrils flared. The man who started it says, "You don't look like you're from here." He snaps, "I fought for my fucking country. I fought for my fucking country," shoving him into the fridge. Ali darts forwards, placing himself between the two groups and telling the men, "Out." Another guy comes over and blocks the two groups, pointing the two guys to the door. They leave, slowly, shouting backwards, one of them grabbing his ballsack over his shorts. When they've finally left, I exhale, leaning against the freezer door. An hour later, while we grab our bags downstairs, I impulsively sit down at the CCTV monitor. Ali is talking to Claudia by the lift. I hear him say, "Another crazy night," like he's surprised. "Come on, Ollie," Claudia says. "Give me a sec." I scroll back, watching as shelves untidy themselves, as discounted loaves of bread leap from the wastage bag, as shelves refill with beer. I change angles and hit space. I can see myself, hunched by the trolley, and the two men to my right, one of them gesticulating. As he passes, the third man extends his shoulder and bumps against one of them, quite clearly. I sit for a moment, wondering what to make of it, before standing up and switching off the light. There are a great many events in my life that to an outside observer must seem so rich in metaphor that they strain all credulity, and yet, all of them are true. A good example is the 18 months I spent working in the North Street Co-op in central Brighton, joining the team a few weeks before the COVID lockdown was announced, and leaving just as the country began to return to normal. It was a deeply confrontational environment, shocking eruptions of violence and screaming, blood, fights, drugs, and mental illness. I was utterly unprepared, finding myself in charge of situations where I truly had no idea what to do. A woman with scabbed feet nodding herself to sleep sat on the newspapers, another screaming about her dead mother while hurling bottles of Fanta to the floor, a man covered in blood stumbling into the store, screaming, "It's not my blood." My Friday and Saturday evening shifts would pass in a blur, levels of adrenaline and stress I'd never felt before at work. For a while it seemed likely to me that I might get stabbed, or that someone might die on my shift. It was the worst job I've ever had, and yet, from time to time, I miss it. Next, we're going to be reading a letter sent in by a listener. I only received one letter this month, but I guess it's still early days, so I'll try not to be too disheartened. Dear Oliver, after hearing about the theme of this month's episode, I decided to write in and tell you about something that had happened to me at the end of last year. I was walking through the aisles of Tesco, the big one in Hove, hungover and dazzled by the bright colours, by the movement of trolleys and staff members, by the discarded cardboard boxes on the floor, the yellow tubes sucking up moisture from under the fridges. I had no real idea what I wanted, items for lunch and ingredients for dinner, but no plan, no list. I found myself wandering through the aisles, starting in the fruit and veg, continuing through ready meals and meat, into world foods, pot noodles, pasta, bread fresh and not so fresh, and then into uncharted territory, through cleaning supplies, pet food, condoms, pans, greetings cards, and clothing. Once I reached the end, I looped back, drawn by colours and the sensation of movement, and then, or maybe later when I arrived home with a bizarre array of cured meats, tinned vegetables, stock cubes, and candles, I stumbled across the idea. I recognised that there would be a size of shop below which my experiment would be quickly spotted, proven right through a couple of test runs in the local co-ops. I wasn't stopped or directly called out, but I noticed looks from security guards, women behind the counter speaking quietly into their headsets. It was clear that I was rumbled, though I suspect they saw me as a would-be thief rather than grasping my true goals. Within Audi I lasted longer, spending the best part of an hour looping slowly around the bread aisle, curving past the display of Christmas chocolate, and gliding past bleach, Weetabix, and toothpaste, just going round and round, not stopping to check anything. Eventually, though, a man putting out tins of tomatoes asked me if I was looking for something, and the experiment was over. Moving on to the larger shops, the Tesco, the Morrisons, the Asda and the Sainsbury's, I realised that I needed to maintain some degree of randomness, that I couldn't just endlessly circle one section. I tried a mathematical solution, using prime numbers to designate which segment I should stop at, then ascending or descending Fibonacci numbers to choose the shelf and item. I also tried a colour-based system, where I navigated through the rainbow, stopping and picking up the first yellow packet or green lettuce I saw, turning it a few times, and putting it back. I even tried approaching it in terms of narrative, picking up and putting back each ingredient in a series of meals, but that gave me too much purpose. In the end I turned to meditation, to my subconscious. I let myself be guided to the newspaper bay, to the cheese counter, to the Caribbean soft drinks, to the sherry, to the spatulas. I picked things up leisurely, looked them over, stared at labels without reading a word, and put them back. At the 24-hour Asda, I kept this up for nearly 15 hours, watching customers arrive and leave, mothers pushing prams, giving way to office workers, grabbing ready meals, giving way to stoners and junkies on midnight runs. It was only when my legs felt like they would give in that I stopped. I started going every day, some weeks varying shops, some weeks attending the same branch over and over. I grew to recognise the staff from every angle, became so intimate with the spaces that I could navigate them blindfolded, learnt the playlist that looped endlessly, the progression of smells across the day, the ways that customers ebbed and flowed. This continued for nearly a month, until a Thursday, when I was in the Tesco where it all started. I was several hours in, the fresh bread was out on display and the baker had left, the produce was starting to run low. Only a few customers were around me. I was staring at the label on a pot noodle when I felt a tap on the shoulder. I turned and saw someone I'd never seen before, a woman. "What are you doing?" she said. Supermarkets can be quite unnerving places. Working at I would spend the first 30 minutes of each shift navigating the labyrinthine back corridors looking for someone in charge to tell me what to do. Would observe the managers talk about the company that was paying me an entry-level wage to stack shelves with a Scientologist's fervour. Would note, with increasing specificity, the way that the company deliberately put very young women in customer-facing roles to be ogled and leered at by the posh men buying their Sunday Times. Our next piece is not written by me. It's an article from Itch magazine that I helped out with some research on, but it was written by Henrietta Levitt, so my thanks to her and to Itch magazine for allowing me to include it today. The title of the article is The Basket Case, and I hope you enjoy it. The Basket Case by Henrietta Levitt. How an anonymous social media account captured the zeitgeist, exposed social rifts across Brighton, and left us with a mystery that no one cared to solve. On Saturday, August 10th, 2024, a little after 2 p.m, a photo was published online, first on X, then, a couple of minutes later, on Instagram. It showed an arm holding a basket, within which sat 7 identical ready meals, Aldi's Everyday Essentials chicken korma. The image was posted by Tragic Baskets of Brighton, an account opened the day before, and over the following month around a dozen more photos were posted, each centering a basket, some featuring hands, others a glimpse of leg, in all cases surrounded by floor tiles or shelving. The images were posted without captions, and at first they went unnoticed, with little more than a handful of likes and no comments. Then, suddenly, things started to move. A woman named Julie posted "Piggies at the trough" under a photo of a basket filled with frozen pizzas, while a man called Nigel posted "Disgusting, if she's feeding her kids this, they should be taken away from her," on a basket containing cake rolls and Cocoa Pops. Simone, who's asked me not to share her surname, a self-professed recovering internet sleuth, told me, "What was fascinating about the comments, and the very shared identity and language within them, is that you could see this group personality come into being and then crystallize, very, very quickly, all within the first month of the account opening." Simone, along with many of the other people I spoke to for this article, suspected that the initial comments were the work of a single person, presumably the owner of the account, as they all used remarkably similar wording and, perhaps most compellingly, shared the same spelling errors across words like embarrassing and hypocrisy. Simone described the language to me as a weird blend of good old days delusion, fascist rhetoric, random mentions of contemporary right-wing bogeymen, and genuine hatred, saying that the closest comparison she could think of was the comment section of a Daily Mail article about immigrants. While the initial comments may have been the work of a single author, soon dozens of real accounts were commenting on each post, parroting the language of the initial responses. Across what was ultimately several hundred posts, common themes developed. The vast majority of the photos were of ready meals, frozen food and fizzy drinks, with comments about pigs, fatties and child services. But there were variations. A trolley filled with beers garnered comments about cirrhosis and domestic abuse, and a basket featuring a pregnancy test received such hateful responses that the comments on X were closed by a moderator. By the end of September, Tragic Baskets of Brighton was nearing 10,000 followers across both platforms and had started to creep into the public eye, discussed in both cafes and comment sections. That the page was something very negative, hateful even, seemed clear to many people, but others came out to defend it. In a viral Facebook post, local councillor Trevor Davis wrote that the page exposes the poison of junk food, an epidemic far deadlier than COVID, which, amongst other scandals, was seen to trigger his resignation a month later. The baked-in ambiguity of the page further complicated matters. To those opposing Tragic Baskets, the intent was clear, to belittle and mock strangers based on their decisions, to invite speculation and stereotyping from an enraged pool of bigots, while to those who supported it, the page was sparking debate about a complex topic, or simply puncturing the image of Brighton as a healthy eating capital. Because the page itself wasn't explicitly stoking the comments, they argued it wasn't responsible for them. Even for users like Simone, who found the page abhorrent, there was an undeniable fascination to it, its weirdness, its mystery. She first heard about tragic baskets of Brighton in late September, telling me, "Obviously I thought it was awful, but on the first post I saw someone had commented, 'How can we expect this generation to fight Russia when they're eating crap like this?' Which is just hysterical." Both sides of this emerging debate had starkly different structures, with those who supported tragic baskets doing so in a kind of contented mass of hatred, and those who opposed it splitting into dozens of rival factions, developing their own sprawling and at times deeply esoteric vocabulary, and quickly beginning to fight amongst themselves. Some argue that the only path forward was to get the page removed, while others believed that the moderation approaches of X and Instagram were akin to a moral black hole, and that such attempts were therefore meaningless. Some tried to flood the comments of the posts with positivity and affirmation, but would often find themselves arguing with other commentators, in doing so boosting the posts within the algorithm and getting them seen by more people. Others argued that the page should be ignored, that it would burn out over time and shouldn't be encouraged, but as the days passed and the follower count ballooned, this too seemed ineffective. Over a few weeks, the largest and most avid group pointed towards what they claimed was the only solution: exposure. Simone was one of those people, finding herself spending a few hours a day on a Discord group dedicated to uncovering the owner of tragic baskets of Brighton. It was an uphill battle. Tragic baskets never commented, didn't respond to messages, and had no other modes of communication. Quickly, users set up a Google Sheet listing each photo, attempting to pinpoint where and when they were taken, but the photos occurred across Brighton and Hove, and even further afield, with some taken in Crawley, Shoreham, and Haywards Heath. Over time, several people came forwards to identify themselves as the subjects of the photos. One of them, Oliver, spoke to me of his shame at seeing his purchase of alcohol, which he stressed was unusually large for him, broadcast to nearly 50,000 people. However, even with photo evidence and timestamps, the stores involved were unwilling to share CCTV footage to help catch the photographer. All the while, Tragic Baskets was growing, receiving coverage in newspapers and TV shows, praise from MP Richard Nicholas, and condemnation from a cross-party coalition of local politicians. That this was happening in Brighton seemed of particular interest to the rest of the country. Brighton has a complicated reputation, seen as simultaneously expensive, filthy, corrupt, preachy, liberated, and dangerous, thanks to the singular focuses of press coverage there. But even within Brighton itself, many were incredulous that such a page could take off. "It's just so cruel," one user told me, "and so invasive. I'm looking over my shoulder when I go shopping, because I'm worried someone is going to broadcast whatever I buy to this group of horrible, horrible people. I moved to Brighton because it felt like somewhere I could be accepted, but I guess that's not the case." Jonathan Matthews, a professor of sociology at the University of Sussex, wasn't so surprised, telling me, "The polarisation of the past decade and the increasingly curated nature of the news as we consume it means that people, by and large, don't understand what other people think anymore, and in many cases have built themselves a bespoke ideology so obscure and contradictory that it can't be classified by any conventional metrics." He said that the poster could be of any age, any background, any class, any political persuasion. While Jonathan saw little to pinpoint investigations, in Discord groups, Reddit pages, blue sky hashtags, and coffee shop meetings, hundreds of people attempted to narrow things down. For many, the page was the work of a young man, a member of the alt-right, an incel, a men's rights activist. For others, the account was run by someone older, maybe a woman. Ruby, a moderator on one of the Discords, explained this theory to me at the time. The posts are all the same, but the Instagram ones always go up a couple of minutes later, which means they aren't scheduling them, they're just posting them manually on both platforms. That's an old person. Charlie, another user, agreed, telling me, "I hate to say it, but it vibes Karen." As the photos accumulated, Simone started to feel that the page hinted at something darker. Over time, I ended up seeing it as a bit of a cry for help, as someone who was probably in a pretty bad place personally, because this person, whoever they were, was travelling all over the city, alone, photographing people in secret, to then share those photos online for other sad, angry people to scream at. A lot of the people online who run pages like this, they're horrible, but they're looking to make money really, or to get famous. This wasn't like that. This was small, tragic even. As progress slowed, many began to lose interest, with little in the way of official action from social media platforms or the police, and a gradual decline in the comments greeting each post. There was also growing discontent in many leftist quarters that the furore and theorising had taken away from the real victims of the page, with one activist who wished to remain anonymous telling me, "I understand that most of these people are trying to help, but this isn't a fun mystery to solve, it's street harassment. There needs to be more of a focus on how hateful the page is to people like me, and how that fits within a broader culture of fat phobia, which often goes hand in hand with other forms of discrimination." As the end of the year approached, it seemed likely that things would remain as they were until the owner of Tragic Baskets of Brighton either exposed themselves or stopped. Then, on December 15th, everything changed. In the blurry TikTok video captioned, "Tragic Baskets of Brighton busted," several people confronted a woman in her mid-50s within the White Hawk Lidl. She was panicked, shaking her head at their questions and backing through the bread aisle. Her name was written across the comments section, shared in tweets on Discord pages. A small group camped outside her empty house before being dispersed by the police. Her employer tweeted that she had been suspended, which received 3,000 likes. Neighbours and co-workers lined up to gossip and speculate to whoever would listen. Amidst all of this, I sent her an email asking if she wanted to take part in an article I was writing. 4 months later, I received her reply. I'm sat on the beach looking out at the ocean, the waves, the line of the horizon. In another hour or so I'll be gone. The tide is coming in, and I like to imagine that it will carry me out to sea, and that I'll float atop the water. I wonder what the animals will make of me, if the fish will stop to marvel at the dark object floating on the surface, if the birds will land on me, nest on my body, this bobbing landmass surrounded by crystalline blue. I wonder how long a body could float for, whether the salt would preserve it or erode it faster, how much will be left of me when I wash up back on the shore or bump into the side of a fishing boat. Maybe a cruise ship will find me. Maybe a passenger will spot me out to sea from their sun lounger. I wonder if they'd stop the boat to collect me, or just sail on. I wonder how long it would be until I'm returned, until every part of me has been eroded away, recombined, absorbed, reshaped, and born anew into something else. A cod, a clump of seaweed, a ready meal. I wonder how it will feel to step outside of myself, to shrug off this body and watch as it's carried away, to move on to the next phase, whatever that may be. I guess I'll find out. I reported the email to the police, who opened a missing persons investigation. Beaches across Brighton were combed, boats searched out to sea, inboxes were dissected, phone signals triangulated, and then things slowed. But none of this registered in the ways that it once had. Discord groups remained dormant, comments on local news articles lingered in the single digits, and across the dozens of supermarkets in Brighton, no one checked behind them before placing items in their basket. What had once seemed inescapable now barely registered. For Simone, any and all news served only to remind her of one of the darkest periods of her life. When I think about the ridiculous amount of time I dedicated to trying to figure out who was posting pictures of people shopping online, I'm just embarrassed, really. It was such a toxic, meaningless waste of time. I just wanted to move on and stop thinking about it. For once, Brighton agreed on something. To bring today's episode to a close, I think we should reflect on what we've learned. There are many things to do in supermarkets. For most of us, they are places we go to buy food and other essentials, or to earn poverty wages in an urban centre. But they are so much more than that. For many, they are a public toilet, a space to proselytise, to shoot up, to harass service staff. We spend much of our lives in supermarkets, and this enormous sample size has made them one of the most honed and data-driven spaces in the real world, carefully curated to maximise revenue from our purchasing journeys. Many find this mixture of colours, confusing layouts, terrible music, and mass strangers to be horrifying, but I think there's a kind of banal tranquility to it. So that's what I do in supermarkets now. I walk through the aisles like I'm floating, observing other shoppers and the items they buy like an alien collecting data. Whether this is the system functioning as intended or some aberrance on my part has thrown things off course is up for debate, but I find it pleasurable, in some small way. What do you like to do in supermarkets? My name is Oliver Logue, and this has been Mono-Logues. Thank you for listening.